Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is the news for Friday, the 12th of August. We have got loads of stories coming up today. The latest on Frankie de Jong. It looks as though a decision is imminent in the life and times of Frankie de Jong. The absolute saga, as we know it, may well be coming to an end in the coming days. We've also got updates on Rabiot. John Murtaugh's been out there. We've got some contract talks. Rumours of a 10 million, they want 10 million, we want to pay 7 million, 6 million. We'll get into all of that. Also, a big update actually, and I think this is almost says a lot politically about the situation at Manchester United. Manchester United stepping up their search for a number 2 goalkeeper and increasing the budget quite substantially in that search as well, which I think is, again, we'll get into what that means for David De Gea and what that means for Manchester United. And also some breaking news on Milinkovic-Savic. Lazio, their president, I believe it is, Claudio Lotito, this morning has supposedly set a fee. We got a quote from him talking about how much they want for Sergej Milinkovic-Savic. So loads coming up. Again, we are live, so make sure you get in the comments. Give us your thoughts on De Jong. Give us your thoughts on Milinkovic-Savic. We've got also Rashford updates as well. There's genuinely loads to get into today. So without further ado, let's just get into it. Let's start with Marcus Rashford. Obviously, the story broke last night that there had been some meetings, some correspondence between Marcus Rashford's team and PSG. Do you want to know something interesting about that? And just to make this point about Rabiot that I keep making about how it's all framed with his mum. I only saw one article mention that the person who did this meeting with PSG was his brother. That wasn't at the forefront of this conversation whatsoever. Just interesting to point out. And yet when it's Rabiot, his mum needs to decide whether he can make a transfer or not. Anyway, Simon Stone this morning said, the meeting between Marcus Rashford's representatives, I wonder who that could have been, and PSG is interesting, but United struggling to find one forward, let alone 2. And PSG have got their own high-profile front line to deal with, so not clear whether a deal could happen. This comes off the back of Rob Dawson as well, friend of the channel, this morning, also saying in ESPN, he says that sources have told ESPN that the League champions value Rashford around £60 million, whereas United's valuation is likely to be more than double that, in excess of £120 million. That is a gigantic difference in valuation. And you know what? For once, something I'm glad United are doing. Because how often is it that we just sell someone for about, half, 2/3 of what it feels like they're worth? We sell players for 15 million when they should be 25, 30 million. We do this all the time. Like Chicharito Hernandez left for, what was it, 12 million quid? Like, finally, if someone wants to buy one of United's, biggest players, I know his performances have been poor for the last 12 months, but 60 million quid for someone who's 24 years old and has scored over 100 goals for Manchester United, and he's not even a striker, we need to be getting more money than that for him if we are to sell him. I personally don't want to sell him. I'm hopeful that he can turn his form around and push on at Manchester United. But that is the kind of figure that PSG supposedly are looking at for Marcus Rashford. Get in the comments, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think 60 million would be a good fee for him? Do you think more like 120, like United supposedly would want? What is a fair fee for Marcus Rashford, and should we sell him at all? We've got a super chat here. I'm going to get straight into that. James Wood says, if we don't sign De Jong after all this, then we're going to look so daft, and Murtaugh and Arnold are as bad as Woodward and Judge. I feel so sorry for Ten Hag. They must have backtracked on his backing. What I would say is, on Murtaugh and Woodward, the comparisons there, John Murtaugh is 5 months into this new job. And part of that was dovetailing with Ed Woodward. We can maybe say he's had a bad start, and I think that's fair enough. We haven't got the players we wanted as quickly as we wanted them. We had 9 years of knowing just how bad Ed Woodward was. And the crucial thing for me with Ed Woodward is the lack of improvement. He didn't get any better at his job. Do you know what I mean? There was no through line. There was no improvement. There was no okay, we've learned from those mistakes. He just started shit and ended shit. The one thing I'll say about John Murtaugh is, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit. First of all, the window hasn't even ended yet. And secondly, if he can learn from the mistakes of this window, he's already a step above Ed Woodward. Again, that's something that only time will tell, and maybe I'm being too optimistic or, giving someone a chance when maybe they haven't earned it. But I think the crucial problem with Ed Woodward was how bad he was for the entire time he was at Manchester United. Like, he was incapable of learning. That's my concern. What's occurring, who's been a member for 17 months, says, if we let Rashford go, we should push for a swap for Verratti, then use the Jong cash to sign a top striker. I love Verratti. I think he's a great player. He's one of those players that every time you watch him, he stands out on the pitch. He's like, he can be playing with Neymar, playing with Messi, playing with Di Maria, playing with whoever you want in that midfield. You go, who's that? Because the ways his movement, his feints, his passing ability, his ability to be in this right place all the time. It also reminds me of Modric in that way, where you just go, who's that? Who's done that pass down the line? Oh, it's Verratti. Yeah, of course, it's Verratti again. I think he's a sensational player, and I'd love to have him at Manchester United, but I don't think that's going to be part of any potential deal for Marcus Rashford. And I personally don't think this deal to PSG will happen, but it's interesting the difference in valuation between PSG's 60 million-ish that they're looking to pay and United's 120 million or so that they would like to receive for Marcus Rashford. I think for that, we should probably just keep him. Let's move on to this Rabiot stuff then. It seems as though there's been direct contact between Ten Hag and Adrien Rabiot. This is coming, I believe, from an outlet in Italy who have said direct contact between Erik Ten Hag and Adrien Rabiot saw the player express his liking for the project, even without the Champions League. The financial aspect is another thing. His agent is dealing with the deal in terms of his contract. The request slowed down slightly amongst the sort of the fury of things going on at Manchester United at the moment, which is interesting. But I think it seems as though Rabiot wants at least 10 million euros. The reason I'm reading this in a slightly staggered way is because I'm currently reading an article that has been Google translated into an almost unreadable English, which obviously, if I spoke Italian, this would be no problem. I'm not blaming anyone except myself, but I'm having to sort of pass this through a kind of a speaking filter. Rabiot wants 10 million net with bonuses, which is too much according to United. They're looking at a more around the 6 to 7 million per year fee, which is around £130,000, £140,000 per week, which is obviously a lot, but wouldn't put him in that upper echelon of Manchester United players. This is, again, as I keep saying, the only reason I think this signing makes sense is because I think this will come alongside another signing in midfield, and he's not the main guy. He's not coming in to start every single week. He is what we all want McTominay to be, which is, yes, maybe you're good enough to play Europa League, 15 Premier League games, you can start in the earlier rounds of the Cups, is a good player that can do a specific job against certain teams, but isn't going to be starting every single week. That's my opinion on what Rabiot would be at Manchester United. And as long as he is that, I think it's a very smart signing. Again, £140,000 a week is crazy. What is that? Fucking 7 times what people earn in a year on average in 1 week. But in football terms, that is the kind of first team / squad fringe player type money, especially for Manchester United, who just pay too much for players. I think this deal makes some sense, even if it's not the player I would have picked as my first choice. But it is very interesting, I think, that this negotiation around contract is the thing that's holding this deal up. We agreed the deal with Juventus immediately. Now it's about paying him the right money. And I think this deal's going to get done, let's be honest. If we don't sign Rabiot now, I mean, it looks bad signing him. How bad does it look if we can't sign him? Do you know what I mean? If we're like, yeah, we couldn't convince him to come. We couldn't convince a player that, based on what media reports, Juve fans are clapping him out the door or booing him out the door. Yeah, we couldn't get that one over the line. He'd rather stay at Juventus. Who knows? But I think that deal will get done. Again, direct contact has taken place, apparently, between Ten Hag and Rabiot's team. He's convinced him of the project at Manchester United. Rabiot is in. He wants to join, but it's now about getting those financial side right, which this happens on every single deal. I don't think there's anything to shout about particularly, but that is the latest with Adrien Rabiot. Let's move on to Frenkie de Jong then, because, I mean, I was going to say the gift that keeps on giving, but it's almost the leech that keeps on sucking, this deal, isn't it? I think everyone is sick of this now. I think Chelsea fans are sick of it. I'm sure Barca fans are sick of it. I know United fans are sick of it. Frenkie de Jong's agent makes Chelsea view clear as Joan Laporte vetoed in transfer talks. That's the headline from The Express. Basically, Frenkie de Jong's future is likely to be decided in the coming days amid interest from Chelsea and Manchester United. Excuse me. Frenkie de Jong's agent reportedly have bad news for Chelsea as they remain clear on the Dutchman's desire to stay at Barcelona. One thing I've never seen before, the way we've seen it with this de Jong deal, is depending on which team the news is coming from, there is such radically different perspectives on this deal. If you get it from United, the sources and the journalists that are placed around Manchester United are saying, we still think a deal can be done. We wouldn't have gone this far into the window without having some assurances that de Jong is willing to join Man United. The deal is still on. We're still going for it. We'll be fighting till the end of the window. That's one angle that you hear from very reliable journalists. There's another set of very reliable journalists that seem to be from the Barcelona side that are saying Barca want to keep him. They're doing everything they can to keep him. Frenkie de Jong is a parasite. He needs to lower his wages. He either lowers his wages or he leaves. You know, we're trying all we can to keep him, but you know what? We might have to pull the fifth lever, which is what we've been hearing this morning. Frenkie de Jong is the final lever. So, okay, how does that make sense? We want him to stay, but we'll also sell him because he's a lever. Okay, also, lever is just a sort of socio-economic word for we're selling all our assets because we're skinning. I love how they've managed to use this new copyrighted term, lever. Like, it's just like a clunk. We can always push the lever back. You can't. A lever goes both ways. You push it down one time, you pull it back up. You can't then unsell your TV rights for the next 25 years. It's not a lever, it is a car boot sale. The fifth car boot sale is Frenkie de Jong. It's not a lever like sell him to Man United, and then once everything's back again, clunk, buy him back. No, these aren't levers. These are bullets that they're firing. They're gone. They aren't getting these things back. So once you sell 50% of Barca TV, unless they want to sell it you back, that isn't a lever. You've just lost that, I'm afraid. They're basically cutting the strings on the parachute. That's what they're doing, trying to lose weight. The other side of it is that Frenkie de Jong wants to stay at Barcelona and is doing everything he can to stay. Like, it doesn't make sense. How can there be such reliable journalists saying all of these different avenues where he wants to stay, he wants to leave, Barca love him, Barca hate him, Barca want him to stay, Barca want him to go. I can't get my head around it. It's obvious that there's a lot of political games going on here. There's a lot of sort of kind of standoff going between him and Barcelona. United are sort of in the mix somewhere. There's one rumour saying that Chelsea have agreed a deal with Barcelona. There's another one saying that they haven't even made a bid for de Jong because the player doesn't want to join. None of it makes sense. So personally, if any of you at home have got a better grasp of this, can get your head around this, let me know in the comments, because for me, it feels so political that even, you know, the best footballing director in the world, and I'm not saying John Murtough is that, I'm saying if we had that, I think they would struggle to get their head around what is going on with this Frenkie de Jong situation at the moment, let alone someone who's basically doing his first sort of unmonitored window by himself, which is what John Murtough is doing. It's absolutely ridiculous, the whole situation. But apparently a decision is imminent in the next few days. He's going to decide whether he takes a wage cut. I think they want him to go down to $6 million a year, which is what Rabiot is on at Juventus. So either go down to that kind of money or leave. And hopefully we'll get some update on that. Maybe by Monday was what the reports were saying. We'll have to wait and see. Here's an interesting one then. Laurie Whitwell and Dan Sheldon from The Athletic talking about goalkeepers. Now, David De Gea, for me, is a well-known limited goalkeeper. The shot stopping varies from calamitous to the best I've ever seen. Like he saves the difficult ones and lets in some of the easy ones. But generally speaking, his shot stopping is brilliant. But we all know his claiming of his box is well below average, and his passing is average at best. And that is indicated and sort of, I think, reflected in the fact that United have now upped their search for a number 2 goalkeeper. Dean Henderson has gone out on loan. And this comes from, like I said, The Athletic. United were initially looking at a number 3 goalkeeper to come in behind Tom Heaton. United wanted to pay around £35,000 a week in wages, but the budget has now gone from 1 million to 7 million in the search for a now second choice goalkeeper. So we want someone to come in as a backup to De Gea, not as a backup to Tom Heaton. I don't know what that says about Tom Heaton. I don't know what it says about De Gea, but it certainly says we are thin in that goalkeeper area. And I think 7 million, you think, well, what's that? That's nothing. But when goalkeepers' careers can last till they're 40, we could very easily get a capable, experienced, early 30s goalkeeper for £7 million that has got a lot more experience playing the ball out from the back, passing the ball with his feet. The thing is, I think you look at a lot of Spanish goalkeepers who, David De Gea is behind 3 Spanish goalkeepers in the pecking order at the moment. He's the 4th choice goalkeeper internationally. I think typically the old sort of thinking was that Spanish goalkeepers aren't particularly great at controlling their box, but they're great at passing the ball. David De Gea doesn't really have either of those things, which is, I think, why he's not being picked for the national team. I think that a £7 million goalkeeper could certainly be someone that maybe isn't the all-round goalkeeper that David De Gea is, but may well have an increased passing ability over De Gea. Let me know your thoughts on this, whether we need another goalkeeper, whether we just sort of go, De Gea, this is yours for the season, you work it out yourself. I think this is a reflection of what Ten Hag and his team have seen from David De Gea over pre-season and the start of the season. Too many balls going long still, too many balls being kicked out for throw-ins, still not commanding his box. I just think that the fact that we're upping our search, I know 1 million, 7 million is only 6 million different, but it's we're a 7 times increase on what we were looking to spend. Again, maybe that's a reflection of the fact that we think the De Jong search is now less likely, and there's some spare funds to sort of trickle down to that goalkeeper position. But I think if you've got a goalkeeper that can't pass and can't control his box and can't come off his line in a team that plays a high line that is focused on possession, that to me is a problem. You need, I think, a goalkeeper that's shot stopping isn't as good as De Gea's, but can control his box, but can come off his line and act as a bit of a sweeper when the ball's played over the top, and can pass consistently. I think that's more important in this system. Man United, if we play Ten Hag's system properly, will have 50 to 70% possession every game. And if we need to, if we want to be capable of doing that, every single person on the pitch must be able to keep the ball. Ideally, we're only going to be conceding 6 or 7 shots per game. A professional goalkeeper's shot stopping can't be so bad that it makes up for, not being able to pass. I think I'd rather have a goalkeeper that can command his box, can come out off his line, and can pass consistently than someone who stays on his line, doesn't control his box, and is kicking it out for a throw-in every 2 minutes. Personally, and I think that's being reflected in this increased transfer budget for that position. Let's move on to Milinkovic-Savic. Why? Right. My question is, how come everyone we sign triples in value? What is going on? There was rumours the other day of 42 million quid, 42 million pounds, and you'll get yourself a Milinkovic-Savic. And I thought, it's a lot of money, but it's less than we paid for Wan-Bissaka. That makes sense. We need someone like him. He's a very good player. He's a number 8, box to box. He can pick the ball up. He's a good passer. All of these things. I think that's a good deal if we can't get De Jong. Now, we've got the president of Lazio, Claudio Lotito, coming out saying, Milinkovic-Savic for 50 million? At that amount, I won't sell him. He's worth much more. Our market is complete and finished. Also because Luis Alberto will remain at Lazio. I quickly kept... all the promises I made, all the reinforcements Sarri wanted on the sheet were taken. So, apparently, he's going to be, and I quote, much more than 50 million to get Milinkovic-Savic in. Now we're talking about an unreasonable fee. We're getting to the point where this isn't like a backup discount option to De Jong. This is a backup option that's going to cost 60 million, we're paying De Jong money for our second and third choice players now. This is the problem with leaving your transfers till this late in the window. It's all well and good waiting around for De Jong to make up his mind because we think we might get him. When we don't get him, it adds 20 to 50% onto the transfer fee of every replacement. Because like he's saying there, Lazio, their business is done. Their business is finished. Our market is complete and finished. They don't need to sell him. They don't want to sell him. They haven't got any plans to replace him. So if they're going to sell him, they need a lot of money to do so. We've waited all this time on De Jong, and it's meant that anyone else we buy instead, any backup option, is now twice as expensive. Do you know what I mean? It's not just that we've started the season without the players the manager wants. It's not just they haven't had a chance to integrate, train, get the fitness right, get the tactics understood. It's not just that. We're wasting next year's transfer budget because we're now going to have to overpay for any player we buy. This is why it's so stupid to do it the way we've done it. We should have worked out whether De Jong was coming week 1. The only way this still makes sense is if we still end up signing De Jong. Because if you get Milinkovic-Savic for 65 million quid instead, that's no good. That's too much money for him. I think he's a good player, but the fact that we're going to have our pants down on the fee of anyone we buy is just, I mean, to be honest, it's embarrassing. Like Chelsea just bought Raheem Sterling for 45 million quid, 50 million quid. That is a fantastic deal for someone who's Premier League proven. He's not a very good finisher, but yet he's still got 30 goals in a season 2 years ago. He averages like 20 goals a season for City. 50 million quid. We're going to be paying 60 plus for someone that is a good midfielder for the sort of 5th or 6th best team in Italy. It's ludicrous the way United do business, and the fact that it hasn't improved is really worrying. Like I said, John Murtaugh, this is his first window. If you go on from here and learn your lessons and improve over the next 3, 4, 5 years, however long you're at the club, I have some sympathy that this is a difficult job. But we need players that are capable of doing difficult jobs, because you're not working for Altrincham Town, you're working for the biggest club in the world. So if you haven't got that experience to do this job, that isn't the fans' fault or the club's fault. That is your fault and the owner's fault for appointing you. If you aren't capable, you shouldn't be here. It doesn't matter whether it's the first window or not. You get some leeway for that because you're doing a new job. But why didn't we just get someone in who had done this before? So you don't have to worry about can they do it or not. It just follows the pattern of hiring people that are inexperienced. How are we doing this in Manchester United? Hiring people that we don't know if they can do the job they're being hired for when you are being hired to do the biggest job in football. What a mad concept that is. Anyway, that's going to be all from me this morning. Get your thoughts in the comments. Khalid says getting De Jong will not be enough. It will improve us, yes, but not enough. We need more. It's frustrating that game week 2 is tomorrow and we haven't even done our business, and we're looking for a goalkeeper now. The thing is, we don't have to complete this squad this window. That's why we have to accept as United fans, this is a project that's going to take 1, 2, maybe 3 years, because realistically, you can sign 3 first-team players per window. It's very hard to sign more than that. And we need 8 or 9 first-team players. So that's going to be 3 or 4 windows. I'm happy to accept that. But when you sign 1 first-team player in Lisandro Martinez, and you sign Eriksen, who's a 30-year-old, but in 3 years, by the time this squad's finished, he's going to be well past his peak, and you sign a backup left-back, that's not enough. We need to be signing 2 or 3 first-team players every single window to be successful in 2 years' time. And if we're signing 1... it's going to take 11 years for us to get back to where we want to be. So it's not good enough for Manchester United at the minute. Hopefully we can turn this around, and hopefully they can start getting their checkbook out and actually buying some players. We've spent 60 million quid so far. That is by far the least of every team in the top 6. Man United need to improve and need to improve quickly. That's going to be all from me. We will be back for the brew at 4 o'clock, and there'll be transfer review tonight as well from Stephen Howson. So make sure you check all that out. And me, Adam McCullough, and Jay Motti will be here for the watch along tomorrow. So check that out as well. Thank you very much for joining me. Hit like if you haven't already. Hit subscribe to see when we go live every single time there's breaking news. Big day today, isn't it? Thanks for watching. We'll see you in a bit.